January, and you're like, oh, this is a waste of time.
Yep.
Because like I would like conference games to be spread out a little bit more, but oh my God, North Carolina's getting smashed.
Yeah, Miami's actually turned out to be pretty decent this year. So
it's weird. I don't know. I don't know how good they actually are, but anyway.
The ACC is bad. So.
Yeah, right. Yeah, scheduled tweet. Anyway, so we're back. Live stream's up and running. Folks, let's not sugarcoat it, right? This is the biggest week for Indiana basketball in a long time, right? Like outside of the, hey, is our coach's job on the line this week type of situation, or do we need to get 2 wins to get into the NCAA tournament type of week? Like, I'm not talking about that. Let's face it, Indiana's put themselves in a spot here where, okay, a couple tough losses in this first stretch of the season, the first half of the season, but they're poised now to really capitalize on some big-time Big Ten opponents. We're going to dive into IU's 1-1 week on the road and 2 massive conference matchups and more this week on episode 235 of the Hoosier Sound, where we're the official podcast of Indiana HQ. We're recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Tuesday, January 18th, 2022, where I am your host, Nathan Krishnan. Here with me tonight is my normal THS co-host, Matt Lukens. Matt, again, 1-1 week, but IU did bag their first road win. You can argue that they were the better team for 3 out of the 4 quarters, the 3 out of the 4 halves this past week, but that doesn't matter when you throw the ball away something like 16 times in the second half against Iowa. Yeah. What are your overall thoughts on the Hoosiers' trips to both Iowa and Nebraska?
I would like to think the Iowa game was a bit of a fluke, both as in, first off, the officiating this week was abysmal. I'm talking like unprecedentedly bad. And the Big Ten is known for not having the best officiating. Don't get me wrong. But that Iowa game, I was like, wow, that's the worst ref game we've played this season. And then Nebraska happened. And then I was like, that's the worst ref game this season. And I am sure I will think the same thing about the Purdue game. So the refs suck. Second thing, moving on from that, I will not talk about that for the rest of tonight. That's my one thing. I get to complain about it once.
Okay, got it.
The Iowa game was not fun whatsoever. The first half was okay. The second half was atrocious, and I liked that the IU came out, and while they still were not playing their best at Nebraska, played much better against a worse team, albeit, but they handled the ball and took care of the ball much better the next game, which is nice to see that it's not a consistent problem anymore and more of like a reoccurring problem every once in a while, which is something obviously we're going to have to get over fast and hopefully fix. But the teams that we're playing upcoming, the next two games, don't force a ton of turnovers. So we're probably fine, but we'll see about that. But anyways, very happy about the win in Nebraska. Finally get over the hump. Yeah. And I think Woodson's suit jacket helped that he was wearing. He wasn't wearing his suit, but he wore the jacket. I know it. Sometimes I know people don't like to talk about superstitions, but sometimes there is a place where it's just about a mentality, right? And you come out there, and it doesn't matter if it's somewhat superstitious. If it helps the team's mentality and morale, then that's fine, even if it's somewhat ludicrous, the fact that a suit jacket could help us win a road game.
The suit thing has taken on a life of its own, so much so that at this point it is officially a thing. Right? It is officially a thing until some one way or the other the streak breaks. And so, Thursday, if it breaks, then the noise will stop. But look, it is what it is. Indiana, I thought, had overall a good week. Okay. And I know the 1-1 thing last week, both of us, I believe, predicted Indiana would win both games. IU had
very much could have. Yeah.
IU had it against Iowa. I was more frustrated after that loss than a lot of losses that I've watched for Indiana basketball in my lifetime. I'm looking at them going, you gift wrapped that game to the Hawkeyes. And the way Iowa has blown out Minnesota the following game, you kind of look back and say, man, that's a win that could have really been worth a lot in the long run. But on the flip side, okay, it's a loss that probably won't crush you. And that's generally the theme of all of Indiana's losses right now. Syracuse and Penn State are real iffy. But anyway, IU played good basketball for the most part over the course of the 80 minutes that we saw them play last week. We've gone long enough on this podcast already without mentioning Trayce Jackson-Davis. Frankly, we should just rename this podcast to the TJD podcast. I mean, another outstanding 2 games for him. He could have made an even bigger impact against Iowa, but he still had 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 blocks.
Nathan, Trayce is ridiculous, but I'm not sure we played good basketball for 80 minutes. I think we played better basketball than the opposing team. We did not play good basketball.
I see what you're saying.
I think Iowa is a crap team with a crap head coach.
Yeah, well.
I do not like Fran McCaffrey at all. And they play a stupid style of basketball that only works when players like Chris Murray decide to have the game of their life against the team. Otherwise, it's not very sustainable. And hence why the Hawkeyes have trouble getting any form of success or any title of any relevance to their record. And then Nebraska is awful. Nebraska is one of, if not the worst Power 5 team in college basketball. So the fact that we played better basketball than them for 3 out of 4 halves is the least we could ask.
And I think that's a good point, right? I think you're making a really good point there, Matt, because Indiana fans right now are conditioned to think only about the NCAA tournament. And I can't blame them. I can't blame IU basketball fans for thinking just do whatever it takes to get into the NCAA tournament. Just get us to March Madness. I just want to see Indiana's name on a bracket that's not the NIT. Okay, let's just get us there, please. Okay, and not the women's NCAA tournament because that's a lock. You know that for sure. Men's March Madness. Indiana's overall a good basketball team, man. Like I watch these guys play and they beat the crap out of bad teams. They have been in every single game they've played this year. They've held a lead in every game they've played this year. And they should. I mean, you look at Wisconsin. Wisconsin's the top 10 team in the country right now. Indiana was dominating the Badgers for 30 minutes. And Indiana had the upper hand for more than half of the game against Iowa. So this is a good basketball team. Now, the expectations have to match that. And I like your point that you made there as far as, look, Indiana, they maybe outplayed their opponents, but at the end of the day, they finished 1-1, and there's still more for them to grow. Now, 2 guys that once again made a difference off the bench, Jordan Geronimo and Trey Galloway, especially in that Nebraska game. The 2 players really gave Nebraska a lot of problems, and I loved what I saw from both of them in that Martin Luther King Day game against the Cornhuskers, right? Galloway, 9 points, 2 assists. Just once again, as soon as he hit the floor, you could see him, get deflections and move the basketball and, occasionally score when he had the opportunity. And Jordan Geronimo, 10 points, 8 rebounds. It reminds me a little bit of football games, right? Like Notre Dame's, like Notre Dame's backup left tackle or Notre Dame's backup tight end, right? Just still looks like a really great player when they go up against Wake Forest or Boston College or something, right? And this is what I see here. Indiana's backup power forward can come in. He knows he's going to get some minutes, but he's got a chance to play his way into more. 10 points, 8 rebounds, an assist, a steal, and a block. He threw down at least 1 putback dunk. He may have had a second one. It showed a little mid-range, showed a little mid-range jump shot there. So overall, Matt, Jordan Geronimo and Trey Galloway, it seems like more than Rob Finney, Tamar Bates, and Michael Durr, Galloway and Geronimo are really the major spark plugs off the bench for IU.
Yeah, I don't know if I would sell my Tamar Bates stock yet,
Mm.
mostly because he kind of like Anthony Little, he kind of does the correct things on the basketball court at times. There are times in which he will kind of play a little bit out of control for a freshman, right? But he's a freshman, and you're just going to have to stick with that and learn because he's that, that level of talent is not, you don't find that all that often. So I'm not selling my Tamar Bates thoughts yet, but yeah, I think Jordan Geronimo is key. I think he's got to play more, I think, down the stretch. Especially, I think when Trayce went out, he should have been in that lineup and playing, and he should have been given the ball. I think he was in that lineup, if I remember correctly, but he should have been given the ball in situations. Like, we know Xavier Johnson will take his guy off the dribble for the better or worse of the offense. Like, that's fine. We know Xavier Johnson can get to the hole. But I really liked what I saw in ISO situations with Jordan Geronimo. So late in the shot clock at Nebraska, he should have been given the ball and said, just go get a bucket, go do something, because he's shown he can put the ball on the floor and dribble and drive past his defender. He's shown he can take a 3-pointer if he's open, and he's shown he can take a pull up mid range. And then we know his athleticism, so I don't see how he wouldn't be able to like at least try to attack the rim.
Overall,
just and then Trey Galloway.
Yeah,
I'm Trey Galloway's number one fan. Like, he does everything really well. Now, to be fair, and I love Trey, he did not have a great week. Against Iowa, I thought he turned over the ball too many times, and against Nebraska, he was definitely turning over the ball way too much. He was trying to do too much on the court, and I think there's a nice mix between Galloway and Geronimo. If they could like kind of swap brains, that would be great sometimes, because Galloway at times will just like get too sped up and try to do something, and Geronimo never gets sped up, but I would like him to like show some urgency sometimes and know that he can go and take a shot. Like, I know Coach Woodson talks to the guys like, if you're out there, you got to shoot the ball, and that's fair. But I think Geronimo actually has to take that to heart sometimes, because he's legitimately has the best shooting stroke on the team outside of
Kopp and Stewart, right?
Kopp and Stewart,
yeah.
And he hits. Like, he's a very good percentage-wise shooter. He's very efficient with the ball, and so I would love to see Geronimo take a tick up in playing time and in points per game.
Yeah, we talked about Geronimo and Galloway playing, sparking the team off the bench. Geronimo still only played a little over 4 minutes against Iowa in that Thursday game. Now, they both played 20 against Nebraska. Matt, is that too low, too much, or good enough?
That's a hard question, because I don't think they play 20 minutes if Trayce Jackson-Davis and half the team is in foul trouble. But it was out of necessity that they had to play 20 minutes. And I think we should be fine with that if they do. I don't think that's something to expect the rest of the season. I hope them both get like 15 minutes a game, and Geronimo to at least get, here's the number I want you guys to remember. I want him to at least get 5 shots up in the 15 minutes he's out there. I'm not talking every possession, but I want 5 shot attempts from him. It can be a putback dunk. Sure. It could be anything. But I want him to see 5 looks at the rim, because he's somebody that he can hit a 3-pointer, hit a mid-range, and hit a putback dunk and be 3 of 5. And that's 7 really good points and really good minutes from a player you're getting 15 minutes from. And 7 points in 15 minutes is not super unreasonable by what he's shown in the past, given his minutes selection and his shot selection previously. So I would like to see him get a little bit more shots. And, I feel like everybody on his team wants a little bit more shots.
There are certain players who should not get more shots.
Correct.
Okay? Because in Big Ten
what is the list? What is the list of people?
So Matt and I, right?
Yeah.
Studious in our preparation for this podcast. 3 Hoosiers right now are shooting under 30% in Big Ten play.
Yeesh.
Conference play, right?
Like
I don't care.
Who are the 3? Who are the 3?
Rob Finney.
Yeah.
Tamar Bates.
Yeah.
And Xavier Johnson. Okay, your 3 guards that whose hands are possessing the basketball for large stretches of the game are all shooting under 30% in Big Ten play. So if you ask me, yeah, there are plenty of shots available on this court, and I don't care who wants them. If you're shooting under 30%, you probably need to figure out how to fix that before you take 6 or 8 or 10 shots in the game. And I credit Xavier Johnson. He hasn't chucked the ball up at the rim all that much. He hit a big 3 at the end of that Nebraska game to sort of calm the nerves a little bit. And there's going to be a point, where you're going to have to rely on Xavier Johnson for some offense, perhaps as soon as Thursday night. But right now, if you ask me, Jordan Geronimo, who, by the way, is at 64% in conference play, okay, not free throws, okay, field goals, 9 of 14 from the field. I absolutely want to see him take more shots. And by the way, Trey Galloway, who we've talked about too, he's shooting even better, 65%. Okay, if you got a couple of guys shooting in the mid 60s in Big Ten play, even if it's on a 20 to 25 shot sample size right now, I want to see them put the ball up more, especially in those situations where they have opportunities. So really looking forward to seeing how that develops. I want to see at least 15 minutes a night for Trey Galloway and Jordan Geronimo going forward. I think that's a really good number.
For Galloway.
And you can absolutely make a case more for Trey Galloway. And the question right away is, okay, well, if you play them, who do you take out? And sometimes that question is answered for you, as you saw on Sunday, because of foul trouble. That's one opportunity because of some players banged up. But even if Indiana had full strength, I think you can afford to take off Miller Kopp on the floor for a little bit more. I think you can give a couple minutes more rest to Race Thompson and Trayce Jackson-Davis. Maybe phase Michael Durr out of the rotation for some games, not this coming week, but down the road if you want to play more of a small ball setting. I think that's the kind of strategy that Mike Woodson can deploy here. Also, I just wanted to point out one thing, Matt. This isn't the end of the world. This isn't the biggest thing. But I kind of like seeing Trayce Jackson-Davis jam on some Nebraska scrub and then chirp in his face a little bit, okay? And I know everyone's
it wasn't even a chirp. It wasn't even a chirp.
Everyone's analyzing the video like the Zapruder film. But look, I like seeing that Indiana's taken a beating this year, Matt, right? St. John's, Trey Galloway drew a flagrant. There was a little bit of a scuffle in that Notre Dame game. I think it was Cormac Ryan getting all up in Trayce Jackson-Davis's face. You had the instance against Ohio State where Trey Galloway got hit late in the game against the Buckeyes when the game was in hand. And then in this one against Nebraska, you had Trey Galloway get popped with a forearm, and you had Race Thompson get knocked in the head with an elbow. And I like seeing Trayce Jackson-Davis. And again, this wasn't fabricated. It wasn't manufactured. He dunked on a guy, said, I'm going to drop 20 and 10 on you, 22 and 12 on you. I'm not even going to play the whole game because of an injury. And like, you're Nebraska, you're 0 and 8. Okay, get off our back. I don't want to think about you guys anymore. And it's good to see Indiana show some spine. Am I putting too much stock into this? Like at some point, right? Indiana's got to be, get pumped. They got to get a little fired up. I like seeing that in Big Ten play.
Yeah, that's fair, but I don't think we see that if Nebraska wasn't playing the way in which they were, and they were playing like little meanies. They were playing to try to provoke our players into to lashing out at them, and if you do that, like, you're just kind of cheap and stupid. And I did not appreciate the way in which the Nebraska players handled themselves on Monday night, but it is what it is, and we won, and they can take that L.
Yeah, take the L. And I think Trayce Jackson-Davis sort of sent that message. Like Indiana has been kind of a laughing stock in the Big Ten. And if nothing else, a lot of what we are looking for this season is, hey, what differences are there between a Mike Woodson coached Indiana basketball team and an Archie Miller coached basketball team? And I think you saw a little bit of that difference there. And look, there have been some similarities recently, right? A bit of a stagnant offense, a little bit of road troubles, to put it lightly. Yeah. Is to see a little bit of that fire. I like that, especially from a team captain, someone in Jackson-Davis who came back for his third season. I liked what I saw there. So, Matt, Indiana right now sitting decently, 13-4, 4-3 in Big Ten play, and now a massive 3-game homestand, a rare 3-game conference play homestand coming up for the Hoosiers, and Mike Woodson's talked all about defending Assembly Hall's court, Branch McCracken court, and the Hoosiers will have 3 chances to do that coming up. We're going to preview the first 2 games in just a moment. It's time, though, for Who Won the Week this past week in IU sports. And as I've said before on this podcast, it's really just an Indiana women's basketball segment. The Hoosiers went 2-0 this past week. They beat Nebraska 72-65. They beat Purdue 73-68. We were all over it down the stretch on social media at Indiana HQ as the Hoosiers and the Boilermakers were concluding over on Fox Sports 1. IU looked like they were going to take the L. Hoosiers look like they're going to lose that game in West Lafayette, but an incredible fight back from Grace Berger and Ali Patberg and Alexa Goulbe, a big steal by Grace Wagner late in the game. The Hoosiers found a way to knock off Purdue. Over 8,000 people at Mackey Arena up in West Lafayette for that game. IU ended up taking the victory. They've now won 15 straight regular season Big Ten games. And the big news this past week is that Mackenzie Holmes was unavailable. And for the Purdue game, Nicole Cardano-Hillary was unavailable. And now as you look forward to IU's next scheduled game against Michigan State, which is supposed to be on Wednesday, that is going to be postponed due to COVID-19 protocols. So the Hoosiers are going to have a few days to rest and recover here. We'll see what Mackenzie Holmes' availability is like when IU takes the court next. The Hoosiers sit at number 6 in the country. So definitely make sure you head over to IUHoosiers.com, find their schedule, be ready to see when they play next because they are worth your time. If you'd like to subscribe to our podcast for free, all you have to do is search for the Hoosier Sound wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay up to date with all of our information by following us on Twitter at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound. This part is important. If you enjoy our show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. That kind of support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. So, Matt, IU Purdue, we're back here again. And Indiana right now is going to host the number 4 team in the country on Thursday night, 7 Eastern, Fox Sports 1. Kevin Burkhardt and Jim Jackson have the call, so a bit of a upper echelon broadcast pair there. Purdue is 15-2 on the season, 4-2 in Big Ten play, coming off a win at number 17 Illinois back on Monday when they won 96-88 in double overtime, so perhaps some heavy legs for the Boilermakers. They are a very deep team, though. They're the 4th-ranked team in the country per Ken Palm as well, with the top-ranked offense in the country. Matt, IU's projected to lose 75-72. The Hoosiers have 9 straight losses to the Boilermakers. Talk to Hoosier Nation about this year's version of Purdue.
Yeah, they are the best version of Purdue that we've seen since, well, we started losing to them, in my opinion. That includes the Carson Edwards Purdue team. Jade Ivy is an All-American, one of the best guards in America. Player. Really, really good. He doesn't even play more than about 30 minutes per game. And he doesn't really even need to. He scores 16.4 points per game, has 5 rebounds, 3 assists. You know, like he's an absolute monster. Like, could have a triple double if he has a really good assist night. And that's not crazy for him. Shoots 43% from 3. Can dribble, drive, pull up, take his man. Really, really impressive in transition. Just one of the best players in America. Zach Edey is the most annoying player we will play this year because he is like 7'4", I think. Or is he 5 or 4? He's too tall.
Either way, yeah.
He's too tall and built
7'4"
for
7'4".
7'4". He's 7'4". He averages about 7.5 rebounds per game, obviously, and a block and a half. And he's somebody that we're really going to have to pick on defense, trying to get him into foul trouble, because if we can do that, then that really negates Purdue's game plan. And then the last 2 players you really need to know about are Tradion Williams and Sasha Stefanovic. Yeah. Sasha Stefanovic from Crown Point, Indiana, 3-point sharpshooter. And Travion Williams is, well, he's been around forever. If I have to tell you about Travion Williams, you haven't been watching IU basketball. The senior, he averages 13.4 points per game. He leads the team in rebounds. And he's just an overall really good player. And he's actually extended his range to 3-point range this year. He's taken about 8, which is not a ton, but I think that's more than
Still,
a couple of our players that we count as 3-point threats
Right.
on our team have played. So he's somebody that has now been able to stretch the floor.
Yeah.
So you're going to see a lot of lineups with Zach Edey and Travion Williams on the floor, and that's their winning basketball lineup at Purdue. And that's something that is going to be a bit of a matchup nightmare, Niffin, for us, because Travion Williams is a big dude, and I like Race Thompson's defending, but he's going to have a hard time defending him. And then you add the fact that Trayce is going to have to guard a 7'4" guy all night. They're going to do a lot of work down in the post, and this is going to be a game in which IU's bigs are going to have to play at an all-American level for 40 minutes on both ends of the floor. And this is coming off of a week that Trayce did not play that well defensively. I think Monday night was his worst defensive performance maybe of his entire career at IU, and something that he's going to have to take extremely seriously against Purdue, because if they can get the ball into the big man and you have to double, and they have elite shooters on the outside that are going to make us pay. So you got to really key in on those one-on-one matchups down in the post.
Yeah, and just to be clear, there aren't too many instances where Edey and Travion Williams played together, but regardless, it's still a really tough front court to defend.
Yeah, they don't play together all that much, but when they do, they have a really good plus minus. I don't have that stat in front of me, but they play very well together.
And you're absolutely right. Look, the front court has to be exceptional for Indiana. It's a strong group of players, right? Jackson-Davis, Race Thompson, Jordan Geronimo, and this is the Michael Durr game. I mean, this is the reason you went out and you recruited him from South Florida when he put his name in the portal, to have a 7-footer off the bench that can guard Zach Edey, that can protect the rim against, frankly, Purdue and Michigan. I mean, this is the week that Michael Durr really has to announce himself. I'm not sure if every game is a Michael Durr game, but here is a case where you might actually get 12 minutes out of Michael Durr. And as I've pointed out in some of these matchups in previous years, don't hesitate to use those fouls that you have. Again, don't be careless with them, but you don't want to get beat time after time for layups by this Purdue team. It's a 10-man rotation, and it's crazy that all 10 players are really good. I mean, you talked about the best ones on the Boilermakers, Ivy and Stefanovic and Travion Williams. Everyone else is capable. Everyone else is really good. They return almost their entire team from last year's NCAA tournament, 18 win squad. But there are some openings for Indiana in this game. Okay, Purdue has shown some vulnerabilities on the road this season. They're lost to Rutgers. They didn't play all that great. A bit of a neutral site difficulty against NC State earlier this year. Purdue also, again, some heavy legs probably coming off of that Illinois game on Monday. And Purdue showed some weaknesses at home against the Wisconsin team earlier this month. But one item we pointed out earlier is that Purdue doesn't really force that many turnovers. Okay, so if Indiana protects the ball, they could be in it. And by the way, being in it is not something that has happened recently. Okay, 7 of Indiana's last 8 losses to Purdue have all been by at least 7 points. So I guess the first task on the list is put yourself in a close position. But hey, Mike Woodson has established the importance of home court advantage. Indiana did really assert themselves and impose themselves against Ohio State in Indiana's last homestand. But let's face it, Purdue's team strengths, they take a lot of threes, they make a lot of threes, they're elite inside as well with the presence they have. They rebound the ball exceptionally well. Matt, as you look at this matchup, who are 1 or 2 Hoosiers you're looking to step up if IU is going to pull off the upset against Purdue? And again, Indiana should be something like a 3-point underdog going into it.
Well, I think you point out Michael Durr, so I'm not going to point him because we're going to need the whole team to step up. But the 2 players to me are actually forwards. I think that Jordan Geronimo is going to have a fantastic game.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be at points tasked with guarding somebody like Travion Williams or Mason Gillis, who's also really good in his own right. Caleb First, who's a 5-star freshman. Now, these guys, he's going to have to guard and make sure that he is not letting them be a factor in the game at all. Yeah. And then on offense, he's got to spread the floor. He's got to show what he did against Nebraska. He's got to bring that to Purdue because, again, Purdue, while having a fantastic offense, has been quite suspect on defense. Yeah. So especially if you can shoot the three well, which is why my second player that I'm bringing up is Miller Kopp, a guy that has taken a backseat a lot recently as far as IU is concerned, mostly because, look, the emergence of Trey Galloway has been fantastic. And honestly, his shooting hasn't been as we expected. But he's somebody I've been waiting since he came to an IU uniform. I remember watching him at Northwestern and him going off and having like an 80% shooting night and having 20 points. We're going to need that from either him or we're going to need that from Parker Stewart. And we've seen Parker Stewart have a game this year where he kind of took over and was able to get his shots off. You haven't seen it from Miller Kopp. And we're going to need somebody to help Trayce out, because I look at Purdue scoring 16, 15, 13, 11, 7, right? That's really good equal scoring in their starting lineup. IU has 19, 10, and then like 9. And then it's like 6, 7-ish.
Yeah.
We need somebody to take the load off of Trayce. Trayce is going to have to score 20 points this game. We know this. Trayce is going to have to get their bigs into foul trouble. We know this. He's going to have to defend at a high level. We know this. We're going to need somebody on the offensive end to score at least 15 points this game if we're going to even have a shot at contending in this game, because we're going to have to keep up with what is a great Purdue offense.
Yeah, and it's an elite Purdue offense. Again, one of the best in the country, if not the best, at least as of right now, according to Ken Pom. Purdue does struggle defensively. It's a good point. I also wanted to mention that there is no update on Trayce Jackson-Davis's availability. He did tweet out. Actually, there's no update from the school. Jackson-Davis did tweet out that he should be ready to go for Thursday night's game. I agree with a lot of what you said. It's funny, your comment on Miller Kopp. Indiana really needs him to play. Kopp has not scored in double digits since the Syracuse game, but he's somebody who has given Purdue a little trouble in the past. He's 40% in his career from 3 against the Boilermakers. So if Kopp can do something like 2 of 5 from downtown, that would be really nice for the Hoosiers. I'm going to go back to Xavier Johnson because, right, if you think just about some of these matchups on Thursday night, sort of the bigs maybe cancel each other out, and Indiana's going to have to throw everyone at Jade Ivy. But what you saw on Monday night for Illinois against Purdue was a good game for some of their point guards. Andre Curbelo came in. He was solid with 20 points. 6 rebounds. He showed a little bit of assertiveness. Trent Frazier for Illinois, 16 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. Alfonso Plummer, another guard for Illinois, had 24 in that game. And even though Illinois lost, you saw their guards do well. And I'm not asking Xavier Johnson to, 24, 5 and 5, nothing like that. But, Xavier coming out and hitting those shots that he gets and driving to the rim is going to be really important. Also, Purdue is a team that gets fouled a lot and they don't foul too much. Okay. So you can think about how important depth will be. So our comments in this game about Jordan Geronimo stepping up and hitting some shots. Trey Galloway, of course, he's got that Indiana high school background. So, this game's going to be important to him. Of course, everyone needs to figure out what to do. Everyone needs to step up here as Indiana tries to get their first win in 10 tries against the Boilermakers. Matt, let's get to it. What's your prediction? Who wins this game and by how much?
I like being right, so I'm gonna bah humbug this, but this is gonna be our first home loss of the year to Purdue. I think 82-71. We'll lose by 11 points. It'll be close down the stretch, and then Purdue will make a couple clutch 3-pointers. Jade Ivy is going to go off, and they'll probably get some GIF that they will use in our comments for about 10 years and whatever. They just give them. It doesn't matter. They're irrelevant. Whatever.
We'll see. I think it's going to be a really close game. I just have a tough time seeing Indiana get the win, actually nail down the victory. Purdue is a little shaky from the free throw line, but they go to the line so much that I think it's going to be a problem for Indiana. IU's going to need a pretty special performance from three-point land, I think, to really give themselves a shot. And the Hoosiers right now are shooting 31% in Big Ten play, and you're going to have to do something like 40% in this game to win. Indiana's going to play hard. I think Assembly Hall is going to be an unbelievable environment, but at the end of the day, I think Purdue is going to win this one 72-69. So I got Purdue winning by 3. I think Indiana's defense will do well. The best defense Purdue has played this year is Villanova, and if all of you want, you can go back and watch the highlights from that game, but Purdue didn't have that much difficulty scoring against Villanova. They put up 80 in that game and ended up winning against that Big East powerhouse. So I can see something similar happening in this kind of matchup. So that's where Matt and I see this IU Purdue game. It still should be should be outstanding television. It should be a really fun event. It is technically, mathematically the best game on the docket for Thursday night. So I know a lot of eyes will be on that one. So Matt, before we get into the Michigan game, which comes up on Sunday, as these games now come fast and furious, let's dive into our social media shout out. And Mike Woodson, over the last 24 hours, it's really funny to see the kind of content surrounding Mike Woodson here, starting with his comments about wearing the suit to the post-game celebration where he really sort of embraced his team. He was fired up about IU's win at Nebraska. And then I don't know what picture he posted just before we started our podcast tonight, but Woodson said he's still rocking with the Dallas Cowboys in 2023 after Dallas's embarrassing playoff loss on Sunday. So, well,
I'm kind of disappointed by that, but it's fine, I guess.
I didn't see it coming. Right? I'm thinking Mike Woodson, right? Indianapolis. Okay. All right. Maybe not there.
Indianapolis didn't have a football team.
I know, but I thought maybe he would have adopted it, possibly. I guess it's not another AFC team, which is something, but and also there's some major photoshopping going on in this picture from Woodson, so it is all
Kenya Hunter taking an L for some reason in that photo. I don't understand. He's holding him like a little child. I don't get it.
Mike Woodson has media availability on Wednesday, and I don't think anyone is going to ask a question about that, probably for the best.
You can.
But yeah, Mike Woodson, Dallas Cowboys fan. But hey, more importantly, if you ask me, make sure you follow us on Indiana HQ or at the Hoosier Sound, wherever you get your IU social media content, on Twitter and on Facebook and on YouTube. We're Indiana HQ. We are there, boots on the ground. Jevin's going to be at Assembly Hall this week for both games. I'm going to be at the IU road game in College Park coming up on the 29th, about a week and a half from now. I know it's a little bit down the road, but excited to see the Hoosiers play at Maryland.
That's looking like a must-win game, by the way, because Maryland looks
rough. And well, look at the schedule here. Indiana, the narrative around Indiana could be really different in about 2 weeks, for better or for worse.
Could be in 2 games. We win these 2 games, and we're talking like Sweet 16 vibes.
That's all I'm saying. We'll talk more about that in a second. But once again, on Twitter, Facebook, and on YouTube, we're Indiana HQ. Matt, on Instagram, we're not Indiana HQ, but what are we?
Indiana.HQ.
Exactly.
So or period, depending on where you're at.
Either one. I think the message has been clear. That's where you can follow us on Instagram for all our photos and our videos from all the different IU men's basketball and women's basketball and football games. Make sure you follow us, and if you already do, tell a friend, tell a neighbor, so they can follow us as well. So, Matt, Indiana doesn't have just one skid that they're trying to break this week. That's why we titled our podcast the way they did. It's 9 straight losses against Purdue, but it's 8 straight against Michigan. And the thing is, 7 of the last 8 have been double-digit losses. So Indiana has a chance to really get off the mat against the Michigan Wolverines, a team that has been really disappointing to this point this year, but there's been a lot of stuff just going on with Michigan, a lot of personnel changes as far as guys they lost from last year, COVID absences, and we'll see how they do. They look like they're getting back up to speed, though, really quickly. Michigan right now is ranked the 32nd team in the country per KenPom. By the way, Indiana, as of the start of Tuesday night's action, they are sitting at 28. So it's a pretty close matchup there. Michigan is a 27th ranked offense and a 47th ranked defense. Indiana is projected to beat the Wolverines per KenPom 69-65. And look, man, Indiana's got to at least snap one of these kids, right? I mean, if we keep losing to Purdue and Michigan, IU fans are going to be really upset, as both of these teams are longtime Big Ten rivals of the Hoosiers. Michigan's got 10 good players. Matt, what does Hoosier Nation need to know about this Michigan squad?
This Michigan squad's very interesting. Bunch of 5-star recruits in here. Hunter Dickinson being a 5-star recruit from last year that stayed over. Of course, he's talked about in the same breath as Trayce Jackson-Davis, and he's honestly lived up to that reputation, kind of ish. Trayce is having a better season than him, but it's not by that much. 16.1 points per game, 8.8, almost 9 rebounds per game, almost 2 assists per game. Like, Hunter Dickinson leads the team in blocks, rebounds, and points, and he's second in assists. That's pretty good. Or third in assists, I think. And then Caleb Houston, Musa Diabate are 2 5-star freshmen that they have. Really good. I think Terrence Williams, the second, is also a 5-star freshman, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, number 1 recruiting class in the country coming.
And Kobe Buffkin is a 5-star freshman as well. All of them have a ton of promise. They just don't shoot the ball very well, which is not great when your team is basically made of power forwards. Eli Brooks is their best guard. He averages about 12.5 points per game. And Devontae Jones is their starting point guard. He's a transfer. They've been having point guard issues this year. Does that sound familiar? Transfer point guard. They have a really good big, and they have some wings that will play very well some games and then play terribly the next game. The most confusing part about Michigan is that Caleb Houston, if you know anything about recruiting, Caleb Houston was a top 5 player in last year's recruiting class.
Yep.
And he's Canadian. So, why is that important? Well, we've seen him play at international tournaments for Team Canada against Team USA. Caleb Houston on Team Canada was known as being their go-to shooter, 3-point shooter. He's their go-to scorer. And coming in, they're like, oh my gosh, Michigan's going to have this guy next to Hunter Dickinson and Eli Brooks. Like, this is going to be really good. Kobe Buffkin's coming in. He's a 5-star recruit. Just like Tamar Bates, the 5-star recruits have also struggled on Michigan. Yeah, now, right. Not as much as Tamar.
No.
But Musa Diabate doesn't get as many minutes because obviously he's competing against Hunter Dickinson for a big spot. But he's been pretty okay. Caleb Houston's shooting 29% from 3. And like I mentioned, he was the go-to shooter and scorer for Team Canada. And he's not been that for Michigan this year and have been underperforming. Now they're having a great game right now against Maryland, I believe.
Yes.
And they're playing much better, which is not a great sign for the Hoosiers. But I think that's more indicative of how bad Maryland is as to compared to how much better Michigan is getting. And so we're just sitting here waiting to kind of see what we get from this Michigan team, because they have yet to put together a game where I look at and I go, that's repeatable. When they win, and when they lose, I go, they have lots of problems, which is never a good combination. So I'm waiting to see them play a second game like this, the game they're playing against Maryland right now.
Yeah, and after Michigan plays Maryland tonight, they don't have another game scheduled until they play Indiana on Sunday. It's a 3:30 Eastern start on CBS just before that Kansas City Buffalo AFC divisional game. Michigan is a team that just no one understands right now, and that's really what it all comes down to. It's such a strange ball club. They're having a tough time just putting the ball in the basket. But like you said, they're feeling themselves tonight. I pointed out before the Ohio State game on our podcast that Indiana was getting Ohio State at a good time. Ohio State are missing a couple of guys, maybe one or two players just coming back off of injury. I think Indiana's getting Michigan at a really bad time. I think Michigan is starting to finally get some normalcy, some consistency in their program. Again, they did lose some people. They lost Franz Wagner to the NBA. He was a lottery pick. They lost Isaiah Livers. He was a really good player.
But they replaced them with 5 stars, so that should be fine. I think it's more of they were hoping that the point guard that they got in, Devontae Jones would be much better and take a more prominent role in the offense, given that he's a transfer and a longtime college basketball player, and that he has a bit of a more foundational role in the team, and that hasn't happened. And then Kobe Buffkin, who's the other 5-star guard that they brought in, has shown that he is not exactly he's not exactly ready to run the show yet. A lot like most 5-star guards that come in. It's not often that you find 5-star guards that are able to kind of take over in college basketball immediately. And if they do, they're usually top 10 picks. Kobe Buffkin was not projected to be a top 10 pick.
Something to remember for next year's Indiana basketball team, right? As Jalen Hood-Schifino will.
So he's projected to be a top 10 pick.
Well, I know, but even then, right? You're right, though. He is projected to be really high first round NBA draft pick. Just a couple injury notes for Michigan. No Brandon Johns or Jace Howard tonight for the Wolverines when they played against Maryland, and both players could suit up realistically against Indiana on Sunday. Brandon Johns is someone who brings a little bit more of a veteran presence to that Michigan front court.
Okay. But they're not exactly – Brandon Johns is not Michigan's favorite player. I have been in one too many discussions with our friends over at the Wolverine Corner and our boy
Ant Wright
about one and only Brandon Johns. He's not exactly the Michigan's favorite player, and you'll kind of see why when he plays.
Well, we'll see if he even does suit up. But look, let's make no mistake about this. Michigan has crushed Indiana over the last handful of years. It'll be interesting to see which players are available and which aren't for Michigan. A couple of things that do stand about Michigan, especially when you compare them to Purdue. Michigan forces even fewer turnovers than Purdue does. So Indiana really does need to emphasize protecting the basketball. Also, Michigan just doesn't get to the free throw line. Purdue does. Purdue does that at a really high level, but Michigan really struggles to get to the free throw line. And then to make matters worse for Juwan Howard and his team, they struggle to make free throws when they get to the line as well.
Yes,
so
great combo.
It's a situation there where if Indiana does get beat on a play, which happens, especially when you're going up against a top 30 offense, don't hesitate to take the foul, especially if you're not in trouble. Force them to make 2 free throws from the charity stripe. Michigan also struggles to shoot the 3, as you pointed out, Matt. So it's a different Wolverines team, but as you can tell, they still grade out pretty well on the computers, and they're getting some pieces back. Matt, who are 1 or 2 IU players, 1 or 2 Hoosiers you're looking to step up against Michigan on Sunday afternoon?
Well, I want Tamar Bates to take this personal. He's playing against a bunch of 5 stars.
That's right.
One of which, by the way, Musa Diabate was his former teammate, I believe. Yes, I think Musa Diabate was on IMG. He was either IMG or Montverde, and either played against him in high school or played with him. I don't remember which. I think Caleb Houston as well played for one of those 2 academies. And so I would love to see Tamar take it personal and kind of take it to Michigan, because I feel like this is a game in which we've seen him be able to take people off the bounce and be able to kind of create his own shot a bit. If he can kind of get in his bag in this game and kind of feel himself in this game, like it could be a real turning point for his freshman year trajectory at IU. Not going to be like career defining if he doesn't do it right now, because I feel like he'll be a great player next year when he comes back. But it would be a nice story if he could turn it around against his former high school teammates and opponents. And then the second person that needs to step up this game to me, this is a huge Race Thompson game.
Yeah.
Huge Race Thompson game. Because what did I say about Michigan? They're a team of power forwards. And Race Thompson's the best power forward on that court. And
he's
he needs to
best
show
in the Big Ten. He's one of the best in the country.
And he needs to show these Michigan youngins what a couple of years of experience in the Big Ten does to you. And he should be able to take it to them and be able to, be in their head all day. And I hope to see that from Race Thompson, who I'm sure will do that because he's Race Thompson.
No, absolutely. It's interesting, right? Again, it's going to be another game where Indiana needs a team effort, especially if you assume that Trayce Jackson-Davis and Hunter Dickinson will cancel out in some capacity. By the way, Diabate did play at IMG with Tamar Bates. Caleb Houston went through the Montverde Academy route. So Diabate and Tamar Bates are teammates. I am looking forward to seeing Indiana shoot a little bit. I want to see Parker Stewart. I want to see Miller Kopp. I think I'm looking forward to seeing Trey Galloway and Xavier Johnson facilitate that 3-point shooting ability. And I think Tamar Bates is included in that as well. I'd like to see him hit 1 or 2 triples against Michigan. Bates had a really nice corner jump shot against Nebraska. His toe on the line, or else it would have been a 3. So I'm looking forward to seeing Indiana's shooters make some shots against Michigan.
For sure.
Yeah. And with that said, Matt, all right, let's see here. He's Indiana. So you said you had Indiana lose to Purdue on Thursday night. Now, as Indiana takes on Michigan, once again, Sunday, 3:30 Eastern, CBS, who wins between the Hoosiers and the Wolverines, and by how much?
68-59. IU wins by 9. I think IU's better shooting, more consistent shooting, and I think IU has better guard play, surprisingly, and I think IU has better post play. And I think IU has better defense, and they have better offense. So that tells you anything about Michigan. I don't know what this.
Yeah, there you go. I'm nervous about this game, Matt. I'm nervous.
This is a bit of a trap game. This is a bit of like a letdown game.
Not only is Michigan in desperation mode already to make the NCAA tournament, Michigan is going to have a couple extra days off.
Yeah.
And they're going to have an easy win in their previous game, right? Easy win over Maryland. Get right game against Maryland. Whereas Indiana's probably going to be in a knock them out, drag it out type of game against Purdue. And you're going to have to turn it around 2.5 days later for an afternoon Sunday tip against Michigan. I think Michigan's going to win this game. I've got the Wolverines pulling a smallish upset in Assembly Hall. I think IU's going to lose both games this week at home. So I don't know if bulletin boards are still a thing, but hopefully this team isn't listening to our podcast right now. But I'm not that confident in Indiana winning either game this week. I think Michigan's going to come out on top 70-66. I think Indiana's going to drop both contests at home this week.
That's tough. I don't think that's the case, by the way. I
hope I'm wrong.
I can see why you think that Michigan would have an advantage, but if anything, I think IU playing 2 days before being a little bit more Michigan's gonna be more fresh, but if IU loses, they're going to be mad and they're going to play mad. If IU wins, they're going to play with a ton of confidence after beating Purdue and finally getting that monkey off their back. So I think either way, this Purdue game is going to be good unless we lose by like 30. And then it's a bit demoralizing, which is very possible, but I highly doubt it given the atmosphere that's going to be in Assembly Hall. It's going to be crazy. So I'm really looking forward to that game on Thursday. And whatever the outcome, I'm going to be proud of them for putting up a fight, hopefully. And that's about all you can ask for against one of the best teams in college basketball.
Well, and this is where you look at the computers and you look at the point spreads to set the expectation, right? And this is, it's a big deal. Right? I know a lot of people look at the point spread and you see it get released the day before the game and like, well, that doesn't matter. He's got to win or you got to lose. Well, the computers take that into consideration. So when Indiana's a 3.5 point underdog or something to Purdue for Thursday night's game, that sort of sets the bar, right? And so you got to say, all right, is Indiana going to do better or worse than that? We'll see what happens. As I pointed out just some like 10 minutes ago, in the next week, definitely the next 2 weeks, by the time January is done, Indiana could be feasibly. And again, like all these games are games where Indiana is either going to be favored or projected to lose by like 3 points. Okay, these last 4 games of the month. Indiana could be 17-4 and 8-3 in Big Ten play. That's feasible that we sit here on this podcast.
And what did I say? What was the wins mark that we needed to get to at the beginning of the year?
What did you say? 23? 20?
20. It's 20. I said we get to 20 and we're in the NCAA tournament regardless of how bad you end the season. Because I think you're sitting there, let's say we get to 20 immediately, right? 20-4 is a ridiculous record.
Oh my gosh. No, that would be crazy. Yeah. And if Indiana, all Indiana has to do to end January is to win 4 straight. You'd be 17-4. You're looking at home wins over Purdue, Michigan, and Penn State, and a road win against Maryland. None of those games are overly intimidating.
I think the Purdue game's pretty intimidating, but other than that, I think it's fine.
Indiana's going to be a 3 point underdog.
Yeah, it's not
right?
bad.
So, like, it is what it is, right? Indiana was a bigger underdog at Iowa, for example. You saw Indiana played at Iowa. Anyway, look, we're not going to get into that too much, but Indiana could be, again, 17-4, 8-3 in Big Ten play when January's done. Or, almost as feasible, Indiana sits here and is looking at something like a 14-7 record at the end of January, where they are 5-6 in Big Ten play.
Yeah.
And you go, all right, that's this team. So make no mistake about it. Here on the Hoosiers Sound, we're going to make sure that we keep sort of the big picture in mind here. And that big picture is going to change at this point next week and at this point 2 weeks from now, as we see the Hoosiers situation change going into the month of February. It should be a frantic back half of this Big Ten race. Every night it seems like something crazy happens, so I can't wait to see what takes place. As we wind down here on this Tuesday night, Matt, what are your closing thoughts? A massive week for IU men's basketball. The Hoosiers are in a good spot right now, but 2 games against 2 teams that they just have not beaten in recent years.
Just beat Purdue. That's it. Please. Please just end our misery. Just do it. I don't care how you have to do it. If you got to do some dirty stuff, I don't care. I don't care. Just do it. I don't care. If you're in Bloomington and you get sent to jail for pulling a fire alarm or two, I will pay somebody's I'll help pay towards your bail fund for that.
I was scared you were going to go into a lot worse.
No. I could go way worse.
No. We're not.
No. I'm not.
You're not going to.
I am wholesome. Wholesome podcast.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, anything but. Look, at the end of the day, right? I don't think we can undersell. Right, like the thing is, a lot of people talk about the regular season college basketball being an afterthought. And nothing in sports bugs me more than that. Nothing. College basketball is not just about March Madness. It's not. And Indiana fans know that more than anyone in the last 4 years, but whatever. Right? There's so much more to college basketball than the NCAA tournament. Right? These conference games, these rivalries, and these massive venues. Basketball players put so much stock into each and every game. Again, in the NBA, you've got 82 regular season games. You've got a bunch more in the playoffs if you're a good team. You've got 31 games in college basketball to make a difference. It feels like every college basketball game is almost like a football game. Just in the level of intensity. Not as much, but it's a little bit more diluted. But at the end of the day, like, these regular season games are why we get fired up and why we miss basketball so much in the off season. And to see Indiana take on Purdue and Michigan this week, again, cross our fingers, knock on wood, these games do take place. There's no COVID business happening. We have eagerly awaited matchups like this for the last 2 years in a full assembly hall. Let's see it rocking. Let's see how Indiana does. This is a proper litmus test for the Hoosiers as they gear up for, again, February and March this season. But that about wraps it up for a 235th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Thank you to our live audience. You're all beautiful people. To hear more fantastic episodes like the one you heard today, be sure to follow us at Indiana HQ and at the Hoosier Sound to make sure you don't miss any in the future. You can also go to our website, indianahq.com, to find it all in one place. But as always, thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation.